What's going on, Nerd Nation? This is Sleevecard signing in and welcoming you back to another edition of Test That Team right here on the channel. Today's team that we're going to be looking at is Golisopod, the Golisopod Hyper Offense team, courtesy of Ethan06 out on Smogon. So shout out to Ethan06 for coming up with this team, and I will, of course, leave a link to the team down in the description below in case you want to read all of his reasoning to why the team's built this way, all that good stuff. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this team and see what all we have, what all contributors and all that good stuff we have. So, leading off the team, we have none other than one of the Guardians itself, Tapu Koko. Tapu Koko is hanging on to the choice specs, which is really useful to boost out the special attack of its moves. And with that being said, he has Thunderbolt, HP Ice, Volt Switch, and U-Turn, which overall I think is pretty interesting because he has Volt Switch and U-Turn, which gives it two like switch-in moves, which I believe is actually really, really smart. So he actually says in his own description that the reason for this, and I completely agree with him, is to kind of negate anything that would have an electric immunity. Because, for example, obviously what's going to swap into Tapu Koko are going to be things that are either resistant to electric, or they're going to have an outright electric immunity. So a ground Pokemon, like Excadrill, Alolan Marowak, stuff like that. So having that U-turn available to you actually goes a long way, because at least you're not giving away a free move by just doing a regular swap in. So you're getting at least some damage, and you're getting away without having to do like a whole trade-in. Next up, we have Aegislash, and Aegislash is rocking out with King Shield, Shadow Ball, Flash Cannon, and Shadow Sneak, which I believe right now is pretty much a standard moveset for Aegislash. I don't think you're going to run across an Aegislash really out there that's not running these four moves, or at least three of these four moves. And Aegislash is also hanging on to the Ghostium Z to give it access to Never Ending Nightmare. Aegislash, obviously a big threat. The next one on this team, we have Dugtrio, and Dugtrio is hanging on to the Choice Scarf, which will help it, as it is running Earthquake, Rock Tomb, Fissure, and Stealth Rocks. This is an odd one to me, because Earthquake, like, here's my thing, Earthquake makes sense, Stealth Rocks makes sense, just to kind of get that chip damage off. Fissure is the one that stands out to me, because I don't really, or I've at least never really encountered a lot of Pokemon and a lot of Pokemon sets that run like the one-hit KO kind of moves. So it's just interesting. I'm not sure how useful this is, running that Fissure, but it's there. It is a move, and I'm hoping a viable move. Next up, we have the Pokemon of the hour, the man of the hour, the center of this whole team, Golisopod. Golisopod is hanging on to that Life Orb to give a boost to what I also believe is another standard moveset, and that is going to be First Impression, Leech Life, Aqua Jet, and Liquidation. Overall, it's really interesting, and we'll get back into him in just a second. I just want to get through the whole team, and then we'll kind of talk about how everything works out well, and not so well in some cases. To round out the next two, we have Mega Lopunny, who is running a Substitute, Encore, Return, and High Jump Kick set. Again, for like the third time I've probably said this, this is, again, a standard moveset in the sense that probably about 90 to 95% of all of the Mega Lopunnies I see pretty much run this moveset, or a variation of three of them, and usually what I'll see is Substitute, Return, High Jump Kick, and then the Encore slot will usually get swapped out with something like Power Up Punch or Fake Out, possibly even Taunt, something along those lines, just to mix it up. But usually you'll see something really set, or really similar to what the set is right here. And then last but not least, bringing up the rear of the team, we have Latias, who is hanging on to that Soldew, because if you can't have Mega Latias, you might as well have Soldew, and if you can have Mega Latias, you still might want to consider running Soldew, because it is just that good. Latias is holding on to Psychic, Draco Meteor, Healing Wish, and Roost, which is kind of interesting. It's an interesting setup on that. But overall, I think it's a really nice team. And let's go ahead and start taking a look at it. Let's break this bad boy down, because I want to keep these videos at about 10 to 12 minutes. I know last team we looked at was probably, I don't know, like 30, 40 minutes, which was way too long. So I want to keep it nice and sweet and simple for you guys. So overall, looking at this team, here's what I kind of feel on it. I think it has really good synergy. Or not necessarily really good synergy, but I think it has really smart team choices on it. And by what I mean by that, that's the phrasing I meant to say. What I mean by that is that each of these Pokemon on here plays a very specific role, and it plays a very specific counter. For example, you have Dugtrio here, who obviously a big threat to this team is going to be things like Charizard X, Volcarona, really powerful fire types, things like that, because Golisopod is not going to be able to take on a strong like fire or flying type. So this is where a nice Arena Trap Dugtrio really comes in play, because it can come out with Arena Trap, trap those threats, and then where it's smart in this role is that with the high speed tier it has, plus the Choice Scarf, that it can really outspeed a lot of those threats, so it can definitely trap them and take them out, or if not take them out, at least do enough damage that other things can kind of come in and revenge kill, if need be. Another really interesting counter choice is Latias, because Latias, and this is something that they actually bring up, Ethan06 actually brings up in his own kind of description of the team, and Latias is really here just for Mega Blaziken, because Mega Blaziken right now is such a big threat in OU, and well, not even in OU, but just in like Wi-Fi in battles in general, because I know I'll go and play Sun and Moon Wi-Fi, and I'll see Mega Blaziken on maybe like half the teams. Like, it just pops up like crazy. So having something like this that hey, I'm going to encounter this so much, just having a designated counter for it is really smart, actually, in his part, because if we had Mega Blaziken out, that would absolutely destroy Golisopod, it would destroy Tapu Koko, and really would take out quite a bit of this team, because even Aegislash isn't going to hold up well against Mega Blaziken. Mega Lopunny is not going to hold up well against Mega Blaziken. So really, just having this Levitate, or not even Levitate, I was going to say just having this Latias here, really kind of grounds the team in the sense of anchoring it against one of its biggest threats. So some of the pros I would definitely say this team has is number one, if we look at Tapu Koko. So Tapu Koko is very effective against a wide variety of other leads. So the big thing is, obviously, Tapu Koko is going to be your lead, so you want to get it out, setting up the Electric Surge, dealing all kinds of just stab plus choice spec boosted Thunderbolts, because those deal a lot more damage, I think, than most people consider. But what I think is interesting about this too is when I say it's effective against a lot of other leads, I really mean that, because I played this team probably about 10 times, 12 times as I was kind of analyzing it. And I would say probably like 90% of the leads this thing had an advantage on. One of the more interesting ones is I actually came across a couple Zapdos. So there was a couple Zapdos leads I saw, and HP Ice, having that hidden power Ice on there, more often than not would actually be enough of a threat to at least 2-hit KO a Zapdos, especially ones that aren't like invested in defensively. So it was really good just to kind of have that counter. Now there are some counters that didn't do so well about, and we can kind of talk about that in just a second. Another big pro that I liked was Dugtrio specifically. I know I just talked about Dugtrio being good with the Arena Trap, but one of the things I think was really smart is that when you look at ground Pokemon for your team, a lot of times right now you're going to see Lando, you're going to see a Landorus T, you're going to see Garchomp, you might see Mega Garchomp. Occasionally I will see like Hippowdon, things like that. But what those don't have that Dugtrio has is speed. So having that higher speed tier actually helps out quite a bit, because Dugtrio can come out not only Arena Trap, but you know that your Earthquake is going to hit faster than if it was coming off of Garchomp. So just having that little extra speed tier really goes a long way, because all you're really looking to do is trap in one threat and take it out. You're not looking for Dugtrio to necessarily win the match for you. So I think it was really smart in knowing exactly what specific role they wanted out of that Dugtrio, and kind of maximizing, the best Pokemon to fill that role. Another big pro to it, and I already kind of touched on this, was that each Pokemon is clearly designed to have a certain set of counters, and it's designed to eliminate those counters. So obviously this team runs off of two focuses. One being Tapu Koko, get Tapu Koko out, get Electric Surge running, and just dish out as big hits as possible. And the other one, of course, is Golisopod, because this wouldn't be a Golisopod hyper offense if it wasn't for Golisopod. So having stuff that's like specifically designed to block those counters is really smart. And then the last pro I want to talk about before we'll get into some of the dangers I think this team suffers from, is that playing with Golisopod actually is really fun, and I think this set is really smart, because how it kind of operates is based off of HP manipulation, which is something that I don't think you really see a lot of in like Pokemon. So how it works, obviously, is you have emergency exit, so once you get below 50% on the HP, you're forced to swap out. Well, obviously, you're going to control that by having Life Orb, so you know you're going to lose a certain amount of HP, but you also have Leech Life to help you regain the HP. So what this allows you to do is potentially activate Emergency Exit, get swapped out, and then swap back in, hit with another First Impression, and kind of cycle that over and over again, so you can actually keep swapping in and hitting with First Impressions, or you can also potentially hit with a Life Orb boosted Aqua Jet that might drop you down below the 50% and swap you out, so you could get a nice stab priority move off. And the other thing I think really combines really well with this HP manipulation on Golisopod is in Latias. So you know that Latias, it pretty much has one role, and that is to counter Mega Blaziken. Well, when you run across teams that don't necessarily have Mega Blaziken, the Latias doesn't get used that much. So maybe you pull it out, maybe you don't, but it doesn't do too much against other big threats like Ferrothorn, stuff like that. So what's really cool is this Latias runs Healing Wish. So if you run across a situation where you don't necessarily need Latias anymore, like perhaps you've taken out Mega Blaziken, or perhaps you just don't need it in this particular match, you can actually sack it off to give that HP back to Golisopod, and then you can kind of like start the shenanigans over and over again. So those things I think it does really well. Now, like every team, because there's no team that has zero weaknesses, so like every team, there are some weaknesses to this team. And just to kind of touch base on them, because if you want to run this team, you got to know, what your weaknesses are going to be. So I think one big weakness is, obviously, Tapu Koko handles quite a large variety of other leads, but that being said, Tapu Koko in itself is such a popular lead that oftentimes you could run the chance of having Tapu Koko versus Tapu Koko, which, if that were to happen, it really can disrupt your strategy, because you're not going to be able to send Tapu Koko out first. You might have to counter lead with a Dugtrio, which could throw off your strategy, or you might have to send out your Tapu Koko and hope that yours out bullies the other one, and stuff like that, which makes it a little too chancy for my likes. But it also speaks to how good just Tapu Koko is in general. So that's a big issue, is kind of running across a very similar Tapu Koko. Now, another big con that I kind of ran across was, I talked about how fun it is kind of playing around with the HP manipulation and using emergency exit and first impression and all that stuff on Golisopod. One of the big issues for me, or actually not even a big issue, but I definitely took a couple matches for me to master just how to properly do that. So if this is a new team, it is going to take you a couple matches. There's a little bit of a learning curve for you to exactly figure out, Life Orb's going to take off this much. I'm going to get this much back with Leech Seed. That's going to activate Emergency Exit. This is going to do that. Then I can come back in with First Impression, and so forth and so on. So it does take a little bit of a learning curve. Next, the other big issue for me is that this team really struggles to break like really bulky cores. And by bulky, I mean like, for example, a big issue that I had in a couple matches is I was running across, and I don't know if this is a common core or if this was just like some fluky thing I kept running across, but it was Tapu Bulu and Ferrothorn combined, which was really obnoxious because Tapu Bulu would come out, set up grassy terrain, and then Ferrothorn would come out and just start absorbing energy off of that, plus we really don't have anything that can break through Ferrothorn. Because honestly, if you look at this team, there's nothing that's going to break through Ferrothorn. There's no like fire attacks. There's just really nothing that's going to put a big dent into it. I guess your best option would be like High Jump Kick from Mega Lopunny, but even that gets worn down really fast. The other big thing is, obviously, not only can we be blocked out by really bulky cores, but there's also a chance that you come across like a really tanky kind of ground type, like a Mamoswine or a Garchomp or something like that can really take a hit, but also dish out quite a bit of damage. Because this team really suffers against ground types, especially if you've taken out like Dugtrio and those kind of things. It can really like chip away at your team, and it hurts quite a bit. Mega Blaziken, obviously, we talked about as a threat, but Mega Blaziken is kind of a threat for everything. But there actually is another Mega that I encountered a couple times that was probably even more of a pain in the butt to this team than Mega Blaziken. And I didn't see it coming, but like I said, I played this team probably about 12 times, and like 3 or 4 times I ran across Mega Houndoom. And I don't know if Mega Houndoom is like having some secret comeback, or if I've just been missing out on Mega Houndoom, but he keeps coming out, and he actually did quite a bit of damage because while Latias is geared up against Mega Blaziken, and that's fine, it cannot take like a nasty plot or a nasty plot Dark Pulse from Mega Houndoom. It just really suffers on that front. And then I also ran across one that was running Solar Beam, so this thing got Sunny Day up, or no, it didn't get Sunny Day up. It actually got Drought up from another Pokemon, but then it swapped in and was able to just start throwing out Solar Beams. So even that really put a dent on like Dugtrio and some other things. So Mega Houndoom, Mega Blaziken, those can be real threats. And the other thing that felt a little odd to me is that sometimes this team feels a little disjointed. And by that, I mean it feels like you're running almost 2 separate strategies. One strategy being Golisopod comes out and messes around with HP, and then also it has Latias to kind of support it with Healing Wish and that kind of thing. But then it feels like the Tapu Koko strategy is like its own separate thing, where you have Tapu Koko with Aegislash and Dugtrio in to kind of make a core right there. So sometimes it feels a little disjointed in that sense. So that's kind of my thoughts on the team. Overall, I would definitely check it out. I had a lot of fun running it, so it was definitely enjoyable to me, and I think you could win some matches. I wouldn't say you're going to consistently, let's say, dominate, but you can, if you play really smart, you can win some decent matches. So for the grades, because what's rating a team if we don't actually rate the team? So as some of you guys may know, or if you're new, we have 5 grades that we grade every team on, and those grades are going to be complexity, enjoyment, synergy, versatility, and win probability. So for complexity, I'm going to go ahead and give this team a 6 out of 10, because overall it's a straightforward team where if you understand the type matchups, you're really going to go a long way toward mastering the team, because everything's kind of a direct counter. So if you know, hey, this type's strong against that type, you've gotten 90% of the way there, and the other 10% is just mastering Golisopod. So it's not a very complex team. So I'm giving it a 6 there. For enjoyment, though, I went ahead and gave it a 7 out of 10, because once you get the hang of everything, really playing around with like the HP of Golisopod is a lot of fun, because it screws with a lot of people. And it's also a lot of fun to kind of just go wild with Tapu Koko. Synergy, we are going to give that a 5 out of 10. And the reason I'm going with 5 out of 10 is because while each Pokemon plays its own special role in eliminating those counters for its main like sweepers, it does feel a little disjointed at times. Specifically Lopunny seems kind of like a crapshoot from match to match as to whether or not it'll be useful. The same kind of can be said for Latias, because sometimes it feels like it's not useful, sometimes it does. Versatility, I actually went ahead and gave it an 8 on versatility, because the core focus of the team can actually handle a wide variety of playstyles. So from match to match, this team can consistently kind of show up and do what it needs to do. And then for win probability, I went ahead and gave it a 5 out of 10. And for me, like I said, I did about 10 matches, and out of those 10 matches, I probably won like 60%. Now, once I got the hang of Golisopod, I did improve, and probably bumped that up to like 70%, but it definitely took me like 3-4 matches to get the hang of Golisopod. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. So, overall, that gives this team a 31 out of 50. And like I said, I will go ahead and leave the link to this team down in the description below, so you guys can also check it out, and you guys can also leave feedback for the creator. So, shout out to Ethan06 for having this team, and thank you guys for watching. With that being said, guys, I am going to go ahead and get on out of here. Obviously, we blew past our 12-minute mark, because we're at like 22 minutes, so I do apologize for that, but we're definitely getting closer to our goal. But with that being said, guys, I am going to go ahead and get on out of here. If you like what you saw today, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button for me down below. If you want to take our relationship status to the next level, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me. But with that being said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. This is Sleevecard signing out. Have yourselves a beautiful day, and I will see you later.